Welcome to Games by Design. My name is Noah. I am joined by Nick
Hello.
and Zachary. Or
Hello.
Zach.
I'm Zach and Zachary.
And yeah, either way.
Both at once.
And today we're going to be talking about Deus Ex Machina, which I wrote Man King divided, but it's Mankind divided.
Main King.
Man King. It's an action role-playing game which came out in 2016. It was developed by Eidos Montreal, and published by Square Enix. It is the sixth game in a series and very interesting. I don't think there's been another one since, and I don't think they're going to make another one. But so we've got some footage, and I'm going to start playing it, and we're going to talk about some fun questions. So here we go.
I didn't realize this was the last one they made.
Yeah, it's been 8 years now. So it's game. This is set in Prague. You guys have both played a little bit of this one, right?
Yeah,
I did, yeah.
Okay.
but not very much.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, honestly, I didn't play as much as I would have wanted to, but
You
it was
zoom in
still
on the
really
guy's
interesting.
specs.
I did. I had a lot of fun recording this the visuals for this this time around.
Oh my gosh,
But,
it's so dense. Look at all this detail.
Holy.
Yeah, so I just get right into it because I think that's one of the things that this game really really does well is and one of the questions I wanted to ask was like what makes a video games world feel alive to you guys and or dead or decidedly not alive, and then what are some examples of game worlds that you really enjoy exploring, or just in general, what do you think makes a good open world and what do you think does not, or just your thoughts on open worlds in general. So
Yeah, okay.
because this one I think is really special. I think there's a lot of it's so dense. It's like what you're saying. It's so incredibly dense.
Yeah.
And yeah. So
Oh my gosh.
and, yeah. Also, people do not react when you pull out your gun or throw objects at them, which I
Oh,
think is really
wow.
funny.
It's like the new Star Wars Outlaws game where you can throw grenades at people and it just kills you instead of other people.
Yeah, but this game came out 8 years ago, and Star Wars 8 Outlaws came out a week ago.
That's fair.
It's a design choice, not a
Oh,
technical
this
thing, I
game's
think.
pretty.
But I think, like, for one thing, it's just like, holy crap, like, there's a ton of detail here. Look at that garbage under the bench. That's wild.
Yeah.
You know?
Uh-huh.
It's it really reminds me of like Control or Dishonored, both of which are like Dishonored's a little more open in its in its level design and its in how it's structured, but like everything in those games, in both of those games, Dishonored in particular, like it's just like this like handcrafted bits and bobs and things everywhere, and it's so impressive.
Really don't want to get in that light, do you?
I wasn't sure if it was going to get me in trouble.
This is so interesting. So what makes a game feel alive?
Yeah, I think that's kind of a
man.
big question.
I think density is a great one. Well, this does not. on one hand. Like, on the other hand, when you teabag NPCs, that's what does it for me.
I think detail.
Yeah, density and detail like really make a big difference for me. One of the things that drives me nuts in a lot of games is when I'm playing and there's just a ton of space that is just unused. Like you're like in a courtyard and the courtyard is like a football field and there's like 3 people in it, and
yeah.
like I think of like I have not played Genshin Impact, but I've watched people play Genshin Impact. I mean, I have observed over shoulders, and I remember watching somebody going through town and just being like, "Wow, there is nothing in this place. Like there is a lot of space. There's a lot of flat textures. There aren't objects. There aren't benches. There aren't people or debris or leaves on like there. It's not like there isn't good art direction. Like it's a pretty place, but I just feel like a lot of things are just stretched out to take up as much space as possible. Whereas in this game, clearly, if space isn't needed, they just they put buildings really close together. It doesn't take long to get from place to place. There's like 3 interesting things between every place. It just seems really cool.
Yeah. Kind of on the flip side of that, it's kind of a weird little counterpoint, is that like I usually agree, but then there's like Breath of the Wild, which has like I don't know, maybe it is dense. It's just it's so big. It feels like there is a ton of space that's just like grass, you know? It feels like when you're playing Breath of the Wild or the second one, that like you spend a lot of time over grass. Like it's just grass, you know? And then but I don't know, like it's actually like it feels appropriate for that one. It feels like this is a ruined kingdom with like a lot of empty wilderness, and like there is stuff in the wilderness, like there's like monsters and there's encounters and there's like secrets and stuff like that, but there's still like plenty of space between those things, you know.
Yeah, I don't know that I'd use the word living for Breath of the Wild as much. Like I don't know, like I think Breath of the Wild is appropriate, but I don't think like I think it's appropriate to the game, but like when I'm exploring that world, it doesn't feel quite as dense and lived in as something like this.
I get what you're saying. Okay, so it's not like, no, I think you're right, because it's actually like I was saying, it's like a ruined kingdom where like, you know, a post-apocalyptic kind of like empty world of, it's kind of lonely deliberately, you know, and that makes sense. So it doesn't really feel alive because it's not really supposed to, but this one does feel alive, and it makes sense that it would, because this is a city block or whatever.
Yeah,
and that would be really weird if it.
Surprised. I was shocked when I found out there was fast travel points in this game. I was like, oh, there's fast travel. I must have to like go to different like big areas, and then I'm like, I like looked at the map and I was like, oh no, it's just like to the other side of the street. Like, I was really confused. You notice I had to turn the settings down just then because my computer was whirring like an airplane. But I was so shocked when I found out there was fast travel in this game. I was like, what? Like it takes like 20 seconds to run from like one side of the map to the other. It's not far.
It's so interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that would be kind of my. Well, anyway, so what makes it feel alive then? You know, is I think.
Yeah.
I think two things immediately come to mind. One of them is the detail, which even a game like Skyrim does like really well. And this one is doing really well. I mean, like it looks amazing. And then the second thing I think that makes a game feel alive to me is if like it kind of feels like it's doing stuff that you don't have to be a part of, that aren't really like it gives you the illusion at least that it would keep on moving if if you weren't there doing stuff, you know. Oh, clever. Okay, right on.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. For reference sake, what I'm trying to do in the game right now is I'm breaking into a bank CEO's office, or trying to get some incriminating evidence to get to some journalists. So that's what's going on.
Oh, okay.
I really struggled with this one. It's very funny, but yeah, to add on to what you're saying, Zach, it's shoot, I lost my train of thought because I saw myself playing with the boxes.
I was talking about how like it feels like it's like it's doing stuff even if you're not there to influence it, you know.
I think that's huge. I watched a video the other day about Starfield, and then conversely about Hogwarts Legacy, and that was one of the things that the person was talking about. Gosh, I wish I could remember what it was called, but he was just talking about how in Starfield, you're surrounded by, when you go into like the cities and stuff, like obviously like the planets are empty. They are decidedly empty. That as unalive as you can get. But the cities that you're in too, they have this weird feeling of like suspended like reality, and it's because everything is, it feels like everything in that game, and in a lot of games, this is not just like a Starfield exclusive thing, but everything in like the game and the world is waiting for you. And so it's like it's all waiting for you to act, it's all waiting for you to do anything. And I think that was something that was really fun about this too, is like I was just walking down the street, and then this lady walks up to this other lady. It happens later on in the video, but she is like near the end. She walks up to another lady and she's like, "Hey, do you know where the entertainment district is?" And the girl's like, "Oh, you mean the red light district?" "Oh, well," she's like, "All right, well, first of all, quiet down." And then she like tells her where to go and stuff like that. And I was just like, that's really cool. Like it was just like, that's a very small thing, and like conversations are not that crazy to do, but this game has a lot of moments like that where like stuff just happens, and you don't have to act in order for it to happen. Yeah, which is really refreshing. Red Dead's great at that too.
Oh yeah,
Red Dead 2.
You know, it's really interesting to me because I don't feel like I need the game to actually be a huge simulation. I just need it to remind me that there's a world. Like here's an example. I think of The Witcher. where the dialogue is all written and repeated usually. Like NPC chatter, they say the same things. My favorite beggar in Novigrad is always going to say his hilarious line about his profitable case of leprosy. But,
I was literally just thinking about that.
Yeah, right. But I will laugh every time I walk past him. And obviously that is fake, right? People don't do that. But still, the feeling of walking through a town and just having 100 conversations going on that, you won't pick up on all of them every time. You'll pick up on different ones each time, and sometimes you'll pick up on the same ones. But I don't think game devs have to break their backs to make everything going on all the time when you're not looking. I think that there are ways to evoke the feeling without doing it literally. It's just a thought that I've had lately.
Yeah, not every game needs to be Shadows of Doubt.
Yeah.
like a actually living, fully realized city block.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely
cool.
a place for it, but it depends on the kind of game you're making and how you want the player to interact with it too. Like for a game like, excuse me, I remember there was a Game Maker's Toolkit video a while back about the new Watch Dogs game. It's not new anymore, but a few years ago or something like that. And I can't remember which one it was, but it's the one where you
Legion, I believe.
Which what?
Legion, Watch Dogs Legion, the one where there's a whole bunch of different characters you can play as.
Sorry, I think I lost you there. But it's the
Watch Dogs.
One where oh yeah, was it Legion or something like that? Yeah. So anyway, yeah, it was the Watch Dogs game where you could recruit anybody off the street, and there was this and Game Maker's Toolkit went into this really interesting kind of dive into how it all worked and how the game handled that kind of thing. But then ultimately that, even though it was one of the coolest little systems that had been in a AAA game in a while, it didn't actually matter because the player wasn't interacting with it, in any kind of meaningful way, or it didn't, it wasn't. That was kind of thing. The player just wasn't interacting with the simulation itself in a way that was really satisfying, or even that really made full use of the system, which is such a bummer and a missed opportunity because it's so cool. But if you're playing a game like Shadows of Doubt, and that's the whole point, is that it's just this it is alive. It does the characters are all doing things, or strategy games, you want the other players, if you're playing Civilization or something, you want the other civilizations to be doing stuff, but yeah, I think it just depends. It kind of comes down to what kind of game you're making, and I think more specifically how the player is to interact with the simulation. Because if they're not interacting with that system, then it's kind of silly. I think a great one in a AAA action game is actually the Mordor ones, the Warner Brothers Shadow of Mordor and.
Oh, I have still never played any of those.
Oh, really?
Oh,
yeah, those are really interesting.
No.
That's actually
a
good example of a. What's that, Nick?
Oh, I was just gonna say, I think they give you enough to play with, but they don't go beyond that. They're not spending excess resources on stuff on simulating on all the orc relationships, but they do simulate the stuff that you actually get to interact with, and it makes it super fun.
Yeah, they simulate it to the extent that you interact with it. It doesn't. Yeah, it doesn't do more than what is relevant to you as the player, which I think is pretty wise.
That's very clever. I really should play those. They look like a lot of fun.
I think you'd enjoy them.
That you see.
Yeah, I like how that's most of this video is just Noah throwing boxes.
I was so confused. I was like, what am I supposed to be doing right now? Because I couldn't jump up on things. That is another thing about this game. It is really fun, and I do love that they have a physics engine and that they went Half-Life 2 and they're really fun physics and everything. But you do get caught on 3-inch steps a lot of the time. You'll just be walking, and then I'm like, why can't I go forward anymore? And I look down, and it's because there's a 3-inch step, and I have to jump over it. And I'm like, this is. It only happens sometimes though. It's one of my minor gripes for the game.
Interesting.
But
yeah,
it's still a blast.
Well, that's a really interesting conversation about what makes it feel alive. Sometimes a simulation is appropriate. Sometimes just pretending there's one is perfectly fine.
Just enough of an act that it feels that it kind of tricks you.
Yeah. Yeah. It just depends. Like I said.
Yeah, on what you're going for, because I feel like they have different things. Crusader Kings is a game where everything is simulated, right? But this game is a very different. But you don't feel like you're in Crusader Kings the same way you feel like you're in Prague in this game. You know, like this is a very specific, like immersive, like emotionally immersive, I might say, for this. Whereas Crusader Kings is more mechanically immersive. Like you have to think, like this one makes you feel, I think, in a little like you're in Prague a little more than Crusader Kings makes you feel like you're in, you know, Bohemia, or wherever you're, you know, wherever you're selling off your children to be married.
Which makes sense because this is a narrative game. Like at the end of the day, like this is a narrative RPG, and Crusader Kings is a simulation, you know, type game.
It's a strategy game. Yeah. I think that really it's just trade-offs, you know, like I think that you can't have everything. You can't have a game do everything. Like you can't feasibly anyway make a game that gives you, you know, you can't play Crusader Kings at this level. Can you imagine if you were a 3D, you know, like version of your character walking around Bohemia, you know, on a map the size of Crusader Kings, like, and this was the level of detail. Like, I would love to play that. I would be having so much fun with that. But that's just not something you can make.
No, not at all.
That's the kind of video game I wanted to make when I was like, you know, like 12 or something, and I was like, oh, when I grow up, I'm gonna make. But that's
the ultimate game.
Yeah.
Must have been the wind.
But then there's, you know, budgets and stuff. That's interesting.
I got seen. I didn't realize there was a guy around the corner. Another shooting through me at the box, which I thought was kind of cool, actually.
Oh, yeah, wow.
Cool.
So I turned invisible and ran into a vent.
Nice. I think that kind of answers it for me. I think those are the two big things, like, you know, just like a detail kind of a thing.
Yeah.
And then like depending, you know, like either the illusion of or actually simulating real life, you know, like that is a way to make it feel alive for me.
Yeah. It's funny that I think you earlier, Noah, brought up Dishonored as well, because like neither that or this are really like, I mean, this is a more open world game than Dishonored is. Dishonored has open areas, but they're both in like the immersive sim genre. Like literally the genre is called immersive sim. It's like so much of it is about just like kind of trying to sell you on being in a space, but they're also like immersive sims are also like very much character action adventure games. You know, they're about like sneaking into places and breaking things and fighting people, and like there's, I don't know, like it's still a focused experience, but the simulation, the elements of simulation, I feel like add a lot to it, but I feel like it borrows only enough from the sim genre to really like to make it work, and it kind of leaves the rest on the table, which I appreciate.
Yeah, absolutely. Hitman's the exact same.
Absolutely.
Hitman's another perfect example of that sort of like immersive sim.
Hitman is a really good example. The whole like, it's got a ton of detail. That level, excuse me, that game actually does a lot more, I think, than some other games. I've not played much Deus Ex or Dishonored, but it is like simulated a lot. Like it's all on a schedule. It's all scripted. You know, it's not like it's actually a bunch of systems going crazy. But there's a few that you can kind of mess with as the player. You know, like, oh, okay, when this guy walks over here, if I set up the water and the electrical thing at the same time, he'll walk in the puddle and get electrocuted or whatever and die. But it's like, I don't know. I guess it just depends on, like, it's like I said, it's trade-offs. You got to pick exactly the kind of thing that you want to do, and then exactly the thing you want to simulate, exactly the feeling you want to get, and then hone in on that. And there's so much like specificity that can be found in that, it seems like. This is a pretty game.
Yeah, it is.
It is a pretty game. Yeah, I was bummed I had to turn down the graphics for it, because it really is quite pretty. It actually frequently uses pre-rendered cutscenes, which I found to be pretty interesting, because I feel like a lot of games don't do that so much anymore.
A lot of them are in engine.
Yeah, a lot of them are an engine, or if they're, So it's pretty interesting every time they decide to go to pre-render, because sometimes they'll do it for like a 3-second clip, and I was like, what the heck was that? But right now I'm about to sneak in and finally get some progress on this mission, which is funny because it's been 20 minutes, and I was like, just like, what the heck am I supposed to be doing?
He didn't see you.
You turned invisible.
No, I actually on my cloaking device. Which
Oh,
is actually
okay.
pretty cool. Yeah.
Stealth.
It is a really funny moment where I actually end up finding the evidence I was supposed to find, but I didn't realize it because this game's got a decent like HUD and stuff, but it doesn't necessarily do a great job of telling you like when you accomplish something. Like the only thing that pops up was just like a tiny thing on the left, and I was like, and I completely missed it. And so like for like another like 2 or 3 minutes, I'm like trying to hack these computers, and then I look at my quest objectives, and I'm like, wait, what? How did I did it already? It's just kind of funny, but
Is it normal for people in this world to be able to turn invisible?
yeah. So everyone's got like cybernetic powers. It's like cyberpunk kind of vibes.
Yeah.
But then everyone's racist to you because you've got cybernetic powers or whatever.
That's really interesting because that's like it's not actually race. That's what's funny about. I was noticing this earlier. It's like naturals only on the benches or whatever.
Yeah,
but it's like
it's a little heavy-handed.
Yeah. Well, the other thing too is it's like it's not a race thing. It's not it's just like it's like segregating people who choose to get piercings or tattoos or something.
Yes,
it's like
it is. You go to the bus station and it's like, and there's like, oh, there's entrance for natural. It's like straight up like like Jim Crow. It's like, oh, back of the bus you go. Like it's a little silly sometimes, but
that's interesting.
but the plot itself is actually pretty compelling. I thought it was pretty interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Or I think it's pretty interesting.
I'm just fascinated by this world. Like just watching you play it, the detail and how pretty everything is. It makes me want to play it just because it's so good to look at.
I seriously recommend Dishonored if you haven't played it. I feel like Dishonored is one of my favorite games to just look at. That like
Yes.
the team behind Dishonored got environmental design and like environmental storytelling and just like level design down to a T, and I think it's super super tight and really good.
Oh yeah, and I feel like Dishonored also like invites you to interact with its world in fun ways. Like you know when you pick up random notes to read in well, I can't think of an example, but in many games, it's like, oh, this is just lore. This is just like, you know, audio
Skyrim.
logs, right? Yeah, exactly. But like in Dishonored, like frequently there's like really relevant information, or you'll read a love letter between two people and you'll realize that they're talking about a secret place that this is made up in my brain. This is not a real instance, but this is the kind of thing you might encounter. Is like you'd read a love letter that somebody wrote to somebody else and you'd realize that they're talking about this secret place that they'd go to meet, and you realize that you can use that to sneak into some place or whatever. Like it interacts with the systems in really fun ways. And there's a lot of like using the environment to find clever ways to sneak in and to accomplish your objectives, and it's just a rich delight to look at. Like that game is well, for lack of a better term, it's incredibly immersive.
Yeah. Gosh, we should do a video about that one. How much we're talking about it.
Yeah, really. I think that one of these kind of recurring ideas that we're talking about here over and over again is that it's like relevant information to the player. Like, you know, you're just talking about how Dishonored made a bunch of stuff that you can interact with, but it's like stuff that's the key thing, stuff that you can interact with as the player.
Yeah.
You know, like there could be simulations, there could be really clever mechanics or whatever, but like if the player doesn't get to play it, then it doesn't really quite work the same way, you know?
Yeah.
That said, though, I actually do like it when games do a lot of stuff in the background, because I like I don't know, like, I mean, I love simulation games. It's a different kind of obviously it's a different experience, and like there's trade-offs, like I was saying, but like I don't know, I love, like, that sells a really strong feeling of like of aliveness and reality, you know, in a game when it's like, no, like actually everything is for real. In fact, I think there's a level in Dishonored that's quite famous for actually simulating a lot of really complicated stuff that it could have hand waved or whatever, and it was that clockwork one or whatever, that
That mansion.
Like I think that one of the cool things about that is that it's actually simulated. You know, like they could have just done like cutscenes and whatever, but like no, it's like for real. This is like a physical object that's being
Well, and I think I think a large part of why they do that though is because you can interact with it. You know, you can jump through the seams in a moving wall. Like, you know, like a lot of that is for the level design, and I feel like, I don't know. Do you think it would have been a waste of time to have done that if you couldn't interact with it? Or, I mean, you mentioned you like the systems. You like it when it's systemic anyway. Like, is it just knowing that it's systemic, or is it that the interaction? Do you think?
Well, actually, I think it's I think it is that I can interact with it, because I think here's what I meant. I think when I said I like that there's a simulation going and you sense it or whatever. I like that it extends the rules that you play with to the rest of the game. You know.
Yeah.
You know, like that's one of the things I love about Crusader Kings or whatever. Like these emergent storytelling kind of mechanics and stuff like that. Is that like you can, you know, tag a character that you're interested in and then check back with them in 5-10 years, and then like you can kind of try to figure out, you know, like how this happened, and you know that it actually, like, they've done something, you know, like they've gone on a journey, they've changed, like their traits have adjusted, they're super stressed out now, something like that, you know, like that's fun. But it's fun because it's the system I'm playing with, and it makes it feel like me as the player, I'm playing with the same rule set as the rest of the game is, and no one's getting like an unfair immersion breaking, you know, like edge or advantage to it, you know. At least it's the illusion, like, you know, like it's not, it may not be literally true or whatever, you know. There's definitely cases where things like fudge on the player's behalf or whatever, and that's fine, but like yeah,
it is really cool. No, are you just looking around trying to find a thing that you've already found at this point?
I was frantically looking around trying to find a password so I could break into this computer.
That's really funny.
And then I realized it was only, I think, right around now actually was when I was like, wait a minute, let me check my things. I was like, wait, why is it gone? It was a tiny piece of paper that was under the desk. I picked it up while I was hiding, and I was like, oh, that's cool, that's interesting, that must be some lore. And I just didn't see
it must be
that on the left. I just didn't see that, and I was like, what? Return the dirt. Oh. See my frustration.
I don't think you could see this anymore, but a few minutes ago, that laptop, you could see what's on the screen from behind it. That blue one.
Oh, could you?
Yeah, like it's like a mirror image of it.
See through.
Yeah, it's like a see-through laptop screen, which makes me wonder why you would ever want that.
No privacy. Days, like.
Zero privacy. Yeah.
Oh, they really shot up that room.
Yeah, they did. Like all the vents are blasted. Yeah, they have these security robots too. They're like these big old mechs, and they like roll out of these cubbies. It's actually, this game is cool. Like this game is genuinely really slick. I'm gonna keep playing it. It's got some. It's actually got a fun. This is a total other topic, but I'm just gonna touch on it just real quick. It has a really engaging conversation mechanic where when you're talking to a person, it gives you an example of like, it's like, oh, this person is, you've got alpha, beta, and omega type people personalities. This person's beta. Beta personalities respond well to this sort of conversation, and then it gives you a few options, and you have to like kind of pick the best one. I actually really enjoyed it. I was surprised by how much I thought it was really fun. But anyway, that's a whole other topic.
I love how the game actually labels people as alphas and betas. That's like that's really funny.
It's a meme now, but
yeah, exactly. I don't know if it was when this game came out, but definitely now.
No,
interesting mechanic at least. Yeah.
That's
I'm reminded of a game that I kind of like that is all built around systems called Outer Wilds. Just on the subject of full simulation. But like, I just think that that's a stupendous example of a game that where everything is simulated. It's all real, but it's all real so that you can interact with all of it. And I just think that's got a lot of value and really cool. Just thought I'd throw a plug in there
for Outer Wilds.
I gotta play that game.
You know, I'm reminded also of, this is not exactly the same thing, but this is, I was watching a talk by some of the designers of The Witcher 3. Nice. And the game, anyway, so they were designing, sorry, Noah showed me boobs and I got distracted. I got
like that nobody's responding to you, just climbing down a manhole.
Anyway, they were talking about they were
things,
making the Witcher 3, and they said that one of the things that was important to them for designing the world was like a bunch of stuff. There's a dude down here. It was a bunch of stuff that like a bunch of like buildings and houses and stuff that you could go into, but that didn't have any mechanical function for the game. You know, they were like, they had a bunch of set dressing. They had like like there's food on the table. There's stuff in the boxes.
Yeah.
A lot of stuff you don't need. Like it's like the player doesn't need this stuff. You can't really interact with all of these houses and stuff like that, but it's there. And they said that felt important to them because they wanted it to feel like it was alive and it was real, and you know, just to sell that feeling, you know. This is kind of, I guess, like a counterpoint to what we've been talking about relevance being critical for it to work, you know.
Yeah.
And it also reminds me of, if you watch the behind the scenes for the Lord of the Rings movies by Peter Jackson, they talk about how they felt that it was important to include detail that the audience was not going to see. Like they'd have like, you know, stuff on the inside of characters' armor and stuff like that. And they said that they wanted to go deeper than what the viewer, I think I might have said players, but the viewers are going to see, because it gives a strong sense that the world is bigger than what you're actually looking at right now, you know?
Yeah.
So that's kind of an interesting kind of counterpoint, and I wonder. The thing is, they're not talking about mechanics in these situations, you know, like it's just like set dressing and cosmetics and stuff like that, you know, like it's like in The Witcher, they're like, oh yeah, it's stuff, you know, it's not like they built a whole new system to make it work that way. It's just they made more houses, you know, like it's just art and modeling and design and stuff like that. And same with you know, the Lord of the Rings. It's you know, they just, the costumes were really detailed, and the settings and the, you know, like that kind of thing. Like, it wasn't like they, you know, it's a movie, so it doesn't have mechanics, so it's different, but you know.
Yeah.
This guy's going off, so I'm just gonna turn down that volume. Yeah, no, I'm really impressed. Right in this game, actually, right above these sewers that I'm currently speaking to conspiracy theorists in, there's a music shop, and like, it's like a record store, and you walk inside, and there's instruments all over. There's records. There's CDs. I don't know if this place is a part of the story at all. But just being able to see, oh, there's a music stop, and step inside and be like, wow, this actually looks like a music shop. Like, it's weird to me that that's kind of unexpected, but but it is. It's unexpected. It's weird to walk into to see a music shop, walk into it, and see instruments and things. Like, I don't know why that kind of blew my mind. That's a very normal, banal thing. And I was just impressed by that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I guess it just makes it feel like the world is bigger than the story that is happening in it, which is good for making it feel like real and alive, I think.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, I think walking into somewhere and looking at it is a form of interaction, not quite as mechanical, but maybe on a more mental level. And so, like, the fact that you can go into places in The Witcher, like walking into a house is better than standing outside of a house interaction-wise, right? There might not be a ton inside, but, like, at least you can. Like, at least there is something you can do with it. It's kind of like when you're playing I was playing Astrobot Playroom the other day, and you can just punch everything in that game. Most of it doesn't do anything, but it does respond to you punching it. Like, every time you punch a random robot, they'll like, they kind of, you know, flail around a little bit and then go back to whatever they're doing, right? There's no mechanical impact, but the game is recognizing that you did something. And so I don't know, it feels responsive, it feels alive. It feels like if there's other things, it feels like there's interactions maybe hiding in this world that you don't really know about, and it kind of leaves me feeling like there's maybe more stuff I didn't interact with just because I didn't know how to, like the real world, you know, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Even if that wasn't actually the case. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, Nick. I want to draw your attention to what's about to happen. And that was where I ended my recording.